The school at Waitaria Bay was small. 2 rooms, 2 teachers, and 29 children from 13 years of age down to Sky, who was a new entrant at 5 years, 1 month. Mikey thought it was the best school ever, although he had never been to another school to make a comparison. Mr. Gerritsen was the head of the school family, a big dad who taught all the usual things plus lessons on catching eels, raising orphan lambs, skinning possums and building bush huts. The school was well situated for such activities, right on the sea, with a stream nearby and bush-covered hills behind it. Until the year before, Mikey had ridden to school with Hannah on Shadrach, who would then spend the rest of the school day grazing in the horse paddock behind the classrooms. Now they caught the school bus driven every morning by Mrs. Gerritsen, who herself much preferred riding horses. When she stopped for them the morning after Shadrach had gone, she said, "I'm sorry to hear about dear old Shadrach." "He's in a better place," said Mikey. "His arthritis was getting very bad." Mrs. Gerritsen glanced at Hannah, then said, "Yes, I'm sure it's for the best." At school, it seemed that everyone knew about the horse float taking Shadrach away. News travelled fast in a small community, but it wasn't always accurate. 2 girls, Kirsty Jones and Debbie Godsif, had heard that Shadrach had been killed for dog food. Mikey laughed. "No way! He's gone to this place where they look after old horses. It's a bit like an old people's home. They treat them really great." Kirsty's face lit up with relief. "Just wait till I tell those other kids," she said and ran off. At afternoon break, Eliana Grouse sat beside him. "Hello, Michael." "Hello." He was still shy about pronouncing her name. "Your sister hardly talks to me," Eliana said. "Have I done something wrong?" Mikey shook his head. "It's Shadrach. He was extra special to Hannah. She doesn't want to talk to anyone right now." "Poor Hannah. Well, at least Shadrach's had a stay of execution." "What do you mean?" "Didn't you know that the horse float broke down?" "No." "The man who took Shadrach away didn't get past Linkwater." "Who told you that?" "I found out from Mum at lunchtime. She phoned your mother this morning and your mother told her. I think it was a broken axle. The float was being fixed this morning and they were going on to Nelson this afternoon." "Sophie told your mother all that?" "That's right. Mum said your father got a call from the man last night." "They didn't tell us," said Mikey. "Oh, well, they probably didn't want to upset Hannah," Eliana said. Mikey stared hard at her to see if she was telling the truth. Her eyes were wide and shining and her face showed nothing but concern. If she was lying, she was very good at it. He said, "What do you mean by stay of execution?" "I don't know. I just said it. I suppose execution sounded better than killed." "He isn't getting killed," said Mikey. "That Roman's wrong. He's gone to a place called the Rest Home for Aged Equestrian Friends." Eliana laughed quickly and put her hand over her mouth to stop it. "That's a funny name for a dog meat factory." "He hasn't gone to a dog meat factory." "Yes, he has." "No." He shook his head. "They are stables especially for old horses." Eliana said, "It's the Wuff Stuff Dog Food Company." "Michael, I know. The other day when your mother took me home from your place, she got the address and phone number from my parents. Dad gets all our dog food wholesale from Wuff Stuff. The man pays $30 each for old horses, and your mother said she was going to put the money towards a new pony for the children." "It's not true," said Mikey, but in a quiet voice. "If they said something different, it's because they're trying to spare your feelings. Michael, don't let them know I told you this." "But they wouldn't send Shadrach to a dog meat factory," cried Mikey. "I just know they wouldn't. It'd be like sending great-grandpa away to be killed." "I'm sorry, Michael," said Eliana. "Perhaps I shouldn't have mentioned it. But everyone else knows." "Is this dog food factory in Nelson?" "On the other side of the city, in Harvey Road." Eliana put her hand on Mikey's arm for a second, then stood up. "Don't worry about him, Michael. It'll be quick. He won't feel a thing." The bell went almost immediately, and there wasn't time to talk to Hannah. But in class, while they were supposed to be working on a project about volcanoes, Mikey wrote a long letter to Hannah and passed it along the desks. He watched his sister read it and felt pain with her as he saw her shoulders become rigid and her face go white, then red. Mr. Gerritsen saw it too. He said, "Hannah, have you got something you want to share with the rest of us?" Hannah shook her head and didn't look at him. "Do you want to share it with me?" said Mr. Gerritsen, holding out his hand. Hannah passed him the note. He read it silently, then said in a kind voice, "Hannah, would you like to be excused for a few minutes?" "Mikey, you can go out with Hannah if you like. The rest of us are going to get back to work. Come on, everyone. What's the name of 2 active New Zealand volcanoes?" Hannah and Mikey sat in the sun at the front of the school. It was still afternoon with the air full of noise of nesting birds. The sea was busy too, water splashing and white terns fluttering above it like scraps of paper. There'd be a shoal of kahawai out there, Mikey thought. He liked the way Sophie cooked kahawai with onions and coconut cream. Hannah, who had been knotted up in silence for a long time, said, "It's true." "How do you know?" "Of course it's true. They wouldn't say what the place was exactly called. They wouldn't say exactly where it was. I asked them we can go and see Shadrach. They wouldn't give an answer. They're so vague about everything." "What about the float breaking down? Do you think that's true too?" "The phone did ring last night," Hannah said. "Joe answered it, but I couldn't hear what he was saying." To comfort her, Mikey said, "I think we should get Shadrach back." "How do we do that?" "Tell Joe and Sophie we know all about it and we want him home again." "You think that'd work?" "No," he admitted. "So what's another brilliant idea?" "Well, we could phone the man at the stuffed dog food place and say there's been a mistake. We'll ask him to put Shadrach on a horse float and send him home to us." "Where would we get a horse float from and who would pay for it?" Mikey was struggling with the enormity of the problem. How much would a float cost? "Hundreds and hundreds, unless you know someone who owns one." "We could find one somewhere," Mikey persisted. "And while we're spending days searching for someone with a horse float who'll bring him back for nothing, what happens to Shadrach?" Mikey gave up. "I don't know." "If we're going to do something, it has to be tomorrow," said Hannah. "Let's go to Nelson in the morning, just you and me." "What will Sophie and Joe say?" "They won't know. No one will know until it's too late. There's a freight truck from Transport Nelson coming in tomorrow early. It's bringing the timber for Godsif's new house. We'll get a ride back with it. And not go to school? Obviously. The driver won't give us a ride. What are we going to tell him?" "Nothing. We'll get up on the back and hide under the cover. He won't even know we're there. When we get to Nelson, we'll go straight round to the dog meat factory. We'll tell the man it was a mistake and we'll take Shadrach back. Then we'll phone Joe and Sophie and they'll have to find a way of getting us all back." "But you reckon they wouldn't bring him back?" "They'll have to," hissed Hannah. "We won't leave him. If they want us, they have to take Shadrach as well." Mikey rubbed his arms. Talk like this made him uncomfortable, as though there was a deep itch under his skin. He didn't want to go to Nelson, but he couldn't let Hannah do it on her own. "Don't worry," said Hannah. "I've got it all worked out." "But Shadrach might already be dead when we get there." She turned on him. "Mikey, you are so stupid! Of course he won't be dead." He wanted to ask her why not, but didn't. "We'd better go back inside," Hannah said in a calmer voice. She smiled then and put her arm round his shoulder. "You're not really stupid, Mikey. You're not even a little bit stupid. It's just that nothing can happen to Shadrach because HM is looking after him." Mikey said, "Well, I hope that stuff man believes in your fantastic Hannibal Megasaurus. It doesn't matter what he believes. As long as you and I believe, it'll be true. You have to believe, Mikey, with all your heart and mind and soul and lungs and liver." "Okay," said Mikey. "I believe it. Apricot, apricot, apricot." And together they went back to their classroom in Volcanoes. After school, in the few minutes before the bus, Mikey saw Hannah talking to Eliana Grouse, their heads so close they were almost touching. Then he saw her with Debbie Godsif, and he guessed she was finding out more about the freight truck. He felt a deep unrest in his stomach. Neither he nor Hannah mentioned Shadrach when they got home. Sophie and Joe were working in the kitchen garden, Joe making late spring plantings of lettuce and beans, and Sophie repairing the netting which would protect the strawberries from birds and possums. Joe and Sophie didn't talk about Shadrach either, but Sky did. "I bet Shadrach likes that place heaps. I bet they give him so much to eat he gets fat, fat, fat." And he tried to imitate the walk of a fat horse. "Put your school bag away, Sky," Sophie said. "There's some cold drink in the fridge if you want it." At the evening meal, Joe said to Mikey and Hannah, "You two are very quiet. What are you thinking about?" "Shadrach," said Mikey. Hannah turned quickly in her chair and stared at him. "What about Shadrach?" asked Joe. "I was just wondering how he is." Before Joe could say anything, Sophie put her hand on his arm. "Shadrach's fine," she said. "He's never had it so good." Mikey expected Hannah to jump out of her chair, to shout or cry. He thought she might bring it all out in the open and save them a lot of trouble. But she didn't. She sat there eating, not saying a word.